Time is perhaps one of the most important subjects that you must discuss in relation to creating wealth. As a matter of fact, I am of the opinion, and this is my opinion, that if you were to go to perhaps a wealth seminar, conference, or any form of educational teaching or training about wealth and creating wealth or creating a successful life, where they do not emphasize or teach about the use of time, I believe that there is a missing component. And the reason for that is simply because time is the first currency for success, is the first currency for wealth. As a matter of fact, it's the first raw material for life. Now, we're all different. I'm obviously different than you are. 7 billion people in the world today, all different. But we have equality in one area, and that is in the area of time. This simply means that every day, everyone gets a fair chance, a fair shot at achieving their dreams, because everyone is given the same amount of time. You cannot run up a huge deficit on time. You cannot spend tomorrow's time. You've got to spend what you have today. And so in my opinion, I think that understanding time helps you create a much greater opportunity and a much better probability of becoming successful. And this is any area of life. Think about this. The best relationships, intimacy, business, are those that are formed from the investment of time. As a matter of fact, if someone spends time with you, they're giving you their greatest investment, because time is life. You know, a portion of your time is a portion of your life. You're never going to get it back. So time is essential if you want to become successful and if you want to become wealthy. And that's what I want to talk to you about. It's a beautiful subject. As a matter of fact, the great Solomon, King Solomon, recognized and regarded as the wealthiest man who ever lived, and the wisest man who ever lived, is noted to have said that there is a time for everything under the sun. And he said, there is time, there is purpose, and there is a season, meaning everything in life has a purpose. But everything has a time, and time operates in seasons. And those who achieve success are those who understand first the purpose of time, who also understand the brevity of time, but also understand the seasons and cycles of time. And so what I want to start off talking about today is what I consider to be a very unique and essential topic relating to wealth. Now, there are two ways that you begin measuring time. We have lateral and we have, vertical and horizontal. And what I want to talk about is one aspect, because in the lateral or in the horizontal way, we're talking about time in terms of years. How long are you going to live? Now, that's not what I'm talking about today. But also we have the vertical in terms of a day, 24 hours. That is what I want to discuss. I want to talk about how you can maximize the use of your daily time in such a way that it helps you create a really, really fulfilling experience. If you understand how this works, I believe that you can, in any way you want, you can start to form and shape and mold your destiny properly. Now, we've all heard the saying, because I used to be one of those who said this so much. I wish I had more time. If only there were more hours in the day, I could achieve my dreams and goals. Now, I look back and I just smile at myself and say, how naive could I have been? Because you can't get more time. It doesn't matter how much you pray for it, wish, sing, dance, hope, you can't get more time. And it's not a case of if I had more time. I think the better question I started to ask myself was more about, how can I make the best use of the time I have available? And that's what I want to talk about. It's not about more, it's about how do you become more efficient. I love something someone said once. He said, all men are created equal. Some work harder during preseason. I thought that was really cool. And the point of that statement is simply that we all get the same amount of time, but some of us use our time more effectively, more efficiently. Now, there's a difference between effectiveness and efficiency. In one case, you're doing things right, and in another case, you're doing the right things. You see, efficiency will only get you so far. If you want to be successful, you've got to be effective. And that simply means you've got to be focused and dedicating your time to doing things, not just the right way, but doing the right things. Now, you've got 24 hours in a day, and I want to talk about 4 sections of your time and how you can slowly start to use some of it to create the life you want. Every day is split into 2 parts. I call one of them the waking day and sleeping time. So I'm going to start by saying sleep. Some might call it night. Now, I don't like to use the word night because nowadays we have various working hours. Some people work during the day, some people work during the night. But by night, I'm not referring to the time of the day. I'm referring more to the activity that you engage in. The second part of this process is what we call the waking day. Now, this is where you start. In understanding time and how you can use your time carefully, it's good that you separate both. Now, on average, we spend about 8 hours asleep. That means that we have 16 hours left for the waking day. Now, how you use each section decides who you become. Now, in your waking day, we spend, in my opinion, I think generally, most of us will spend some time at work. Now, if you don't have a job, a full-time job, you might perhaps have a part-time job, or maybe you're a stay-at-home mom, stay-at-home dad, or perhaps you're a student. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to use work to generalize. The second part is what I call your spare time. So every waking day we have work time, then we have your spare time, then we have your night time, which is when you rest. Now, the key thing to look at is how do you allocate and use your time in such a way that is a lot more effective, not efficient, effective. Now, here is my opinion about time. Wealth is created in your spare time. Wealth is created in your spare time. However, those who have learned how to create multiple sources of income are able to sleep, and whilst they sleep, they're making money. They've also been able to dedicate this time, which would have been for work, in such a way that they are creating more assets, and those assets are creating more income. So, if you carefully design your financial future in a strategic way, every single hour of the day, you could be making money. Whilst you're sleeping, you're making money. Whilst you're playing with your kids in the garden, whilst you're going out for a run, you're making money. Whilst you're working, you're making money. Now, if we spend 8 hours sleeping, and we do agree that we all need some good sleep, then the question is, how do we allocate the remaining time in such a way that we can perhaps direct or divert some of the time to creating wealth? Now, the average person spends between 10 and 12 hours relating to work. Now, by this, I'm talking about pre-work. Pre-work meaning you spend about an hour, wake up, get ready at home before you leave. Most people spend about an hour pre-work, getting ready. Then we spend between 2 and 3 hours traveling to work and traveling back from work. That's roughly about 4 hours. We spend about 8 hours on average in the office. So that gives between 10 and 12 hours. Now, this means that we have about 4 hours left, between 4 and 6 hours left for our spare time. Now, I call this prime time. For most families and for most people, this is between the hours of 7 p.m. and 11 p.m. every single day, on average. So the question is, how do you use this time in such a way that it can help you help you create a better future. Here is my recommendation. Now, this is subjective. This is based on myself. So you may have to adjust this in such a way that it suits what you want in your lifestyle. My recommendation is this. Wealth is created by the use of your time. So I'll give you a good example. You can take a 10-pound bar of iron. You can take a 10-pound bar of steel, whatever, you can use this in any way you want to describe. But if you take a 10-pound bar of iron, with a 10-pound bar of iron, you can make perhaps some nice cutlery, some stainless steel cutlery. In this case, I'm talking about steel now. You can make some stainless steel cutlery, and it might produce about, who knows, 300 pounds. You can take the same raw material, iron or steel. You can make some shirt pins, some pins for the shirts, and you might make about, who knows, maybe 30,000 pounds. On the other hand, you can take that same 10-pound bar of iron. You can use it in an intelligent way. The same bar of iron can be used to make watch springs, the springs in wristwatches, and that can make you about 300,000. The question is, what was different? It was about how they were used. It's the same raw material, but it's how it was used. In one case, it was used to solve a problem. In another case, it was used to solve a much bigger problem. In the final case, it was adding much more value. So the value of your time depends on the problems you solve, and wealth is really a product of the level of service you produce. So the law of compensation states that what you earn will always be an exact ratio to the service you provide. Now, Earl Nightingale said in a very clever way, he said, it will always be in ratio, in proportion to the need for what you do, your ability to do it, and the difficulty there will be in replacing you. In other words, you're compensated in proportion to the value you create. Now, how do you create value? You create value by becoming more valuable as an individual. But how do you become more valuable? You invest in yourself. So you must invest time in yourself. Now, I'm going to start off by assuming here that what I'm dealing with here is someone who is an employee. You have a job. Perhaps this job is a 9 till 5 or 9 till 6. So it's a standard normal working hour job. My recommendation is this. If you can discipline yourself to limit your sleep time to 7 hours per day, which would mean you have 1 hour saved every day. And this I'm talking about during the weekday, Monday till Friday. If you can discipline yourself to wake up 1 hour early and invest that 1 hour in your personal development, in developing your mind, in looking for ideas, opportunities, creating wealth, setting goals, what that means is that every day you invest 1 hour. 1 hour every single day in a week means you have 5 hours. Now, what is beautiful about that time of the day is that 1 hour between the hours, let's assume perhaps you wake up at 7 in the morning every day, but 1 hour between the hours of 6 and 7, whilst everyone is still asleep, no distractions, is equivalent to almost 2 hours during the waking day. So it's not just 1 hour you're investing much more in terms of what you're getting back in value. Now, that's the first thing. The second thing is, okay, the waking day, how do you use the waking day resourcefully? Now, between the 10 hour and 12 hours you have for work, you spend 8 hours working. 8 hours. Here is my recommendation. If you are an employee, this is what I want you to consider doing. Let's assume you get into the office. You get into the office at, say, 9, and you work until 6 p.m. In between, you have a 1 hour break. Here is my recommendation. If you can, if it's possible, I want you to develop the habit of going into work at 8:30. Between the hours of 8:30 and 9, I want you to find a quiet place, and I want you to invest that time in your professional development. In other words, in the job you're doing. And sit down for the first 10 minutes and ask yourself a simple question. How can I do my job much better? You might ask yourself a question. How would I conduct my business? be expected to work in 10 years. And simply start doing what you should be doing in 10 years today. It's a simple thing. Just sit down every morning. Before you start, you have half an hour, spend the first 10 minutes, and just ask yourself a number of questions. As a matter of fact, make a list of about 5 things you could do better at your job to make you more efficient, but also, even more importantly, more effective. You see, the law of compensation, like I said, states, you will be rewarded in proportion to how good you are at what you do. But more importantly, the difficulty there will be in replacing you. Now, if you invest half an hour in yourself every day, what you find is very slowly you become very difficult to replace, because you're always looking for problems to solve and value that you want to add. Now, instead of taking 1 hour for your break, my recommendation is split this into half. Take half an hour. Between the hours of, say, 1 and 2 p.m., if that's when most of your colleagues take their lunch break, it's the worst time to take your lunch break. My recommendation is work from 8:30 to about 11:30. Now take your lunch break at 12. 12 to 12:30, at this time, it's still very quiet. Most people are still working, because at 1 o'clock, that's when most people take their lunch break. This would mean that you're avoiding that traffic. You can go get something to eat, it's still peaceful, there are fewer queues. But what this helps you do, it means that whilst people are having lunch, you're working. Now, the advantage you have about this is simply that you can channel most of your time to add in more value. Now, if you can do this, you'll have 30 minutes left. Now, the 30 minutes left, invest that in your professional development. But this time around, rather than studying, go to your line manager, go to whoever is above you, and ask the simple question: what can I do for you today to add more value to you? Not to me, to you. Now, you'll be astonished. Most managers are looking for people who can add value. And very few managers get employees that come up to them and say, how can I help you? I want to do something for you. You can say, listen, I have half an hour and I want to dedicate half an hour of my time, my lunch break, to what you would like me to do. How can I make your day a lot more effective, efficient, but also make your life a little bit more simple? And that's powerful. Why? Because automatically you're now starting to position yourself as someone who likes to solve problems. And everything in business, everything. Yes, we talk about we want the best team, we want the best companies, but I can guarantee you of something. It's very emotional. Not the business decisions, not the investment decisions, but when it comes to compensation, when it comes to promotions, when it comes to selecting the right people to represent a business, the people in charge tend to select people that they like because of how they feel about them. Now think about this. It doesn't matter what company you're dealing with. When you think about a company, you think about a person. So if it's your credit card company, when you call, the question is, how do they react to me? How do they speak to me? Do they speak to me respectfully? You don't remember the company, you remember the service. Now, by investing 30 minutes extra of your time in your boss, that positions you in such a way that now you're gaining competitive advantage. At the end of the day, instead of leaving at 6 p.m., stay back for half an hour. Just half an hour. Invest an extra half an hour and work harder. Just put in some extra half an hour, just that extra mile, because it's all about people seeing you work hard and you saying, listen, I'm here, I'm committed to the company. I love what one person said. What you make happen for other people, the same will be done for you. Now, it's not the golden rule, but it's very similar. And so by trying to add value and solve problems for the company, eventually the company will start to reward you. Now, that deals with your work time in the office, but that's just 8 hours. Now, you've added an extra half an hour, so that leaves you 8.5 hours. My recommendation is, whilst you're traveling to work and whilst you're traveling back from work, be productive. Combine your travel time with learning. Get some audiobooks. Listen. Now, you will have between 2 and 3 hours of travel every day. I'm not recommending that you spend all of it to studying, because sometimes it does get a bit boring. My recommendation is this: do it whilst you're traveling to work, because when at that time of the morning you're still awake. Listen to an audiobook. You can spend an hour and a half traveling to work, and by the time you get to the office, you've probably read a few chapters in a book. You've listened to, rather I should say, you've listened to some inspirational, motivational, uplifting information that is helping you become better as an individual, is developing your mind and developing your focus, your attitude, your intellect. It's developing you as an individual. Now, this is why it's important. What you read has more impact on you than you could ever think. There are 3 things that would always affect you in life: what you see, what you hear, and the influences you have around you. By reading, you can start learning a lot of great things. You can read a book in 4 hours and learn something that took the author 40 years to learn. That's using the power of leverage and compounding time. So all you have to do is invest an hour and a half traveling to work. On your way back, you're probably tired. You can listen to music. You can listen to something entertaining. Now, this deals with that phase. So you start at the day, you put in 1 hour. Then you put in half an hour for your professional development. Now you've put in an extra 1.5 hours for your personal development, but you also put in an extra half an hour for your manager, plus half an hour for the company every day. This brings you down to the last part, which is your spare time, or what I call prime time. Now, we tend to get back home and we're tired, we're exhausted, and all we want to do is have some entertainment. Here is my recommendation. There is something called the EE ratio, the ratio between entertainment and education. My recommendation is this: out of the 4 to 6 hours you have, why don't you invest an extra 1.5 hours in developing your future, your financial future? Study opportunities, learn about investing, learn about strategies, set your goals, review your goals. By doing that, you put in an extra 1.5 hours. Now look at this. In a day, you haven't really changed your routine, with the exception of waking up early and going to work half an hour early. But what you find is that every day you're investing now 2.5 hours in yourself, in your personal development, and in improving your wisdom. You're also investing roughly about 1.5 hours extra at work. That alone gives you a competitive advantage. Now, let me say this: 40 hours every day, 40 hours every week in the office will only get you into the survival state. Everyone is putting in 40 hours. Every hour you put in beyond 40 sets you apart from the competition. In addition to that, in your personal life, every hour you put back in yourself sets you apart from the rest of the group. Now, the reason the wealthy get wealthier is because they understand the principle called the seed principle, meaning everything is a seed. Time is a seed. A farmer has a harvest. He doesn't eat all of his harvest. He keeps a portion of his harvest as seed for the next season. By putting aside 2.5 hours every day, 2.5 hours compared to 24 hours means you're investing 10% of your time. That is smart investing. Warren Buffett said that the best investment you can make is in yourself. It's in your mind. So I hope this has been useful. Now, if you can do this consistently every day, you make it a discipline. You do it without fail. What you'll find is in a very short time, you suddenly start to propel yourself towards a level of success and happiness that far exceeds anything you would have actually imagined. Now, we've only dealt with what you do during the weekdays. The weekends, I'll let you decide how you want to spend that. Perhaps you want to spend them with your loved ones, or perhaps you also want to invest part of that time in studying and investing. Remember this: you get wealthy during your spare time. So recognize something. If you want to be successful, you have to study success. If you want to be happy, you have to study happiness. If you want to be wealthy, study wealth. If you want to be, find joy and peace, you study all of those. Life begins first as a study, then it becomes a practice. It becomes a habit, then it becomes a lifestyle, but it all begins as a study. Now, why is that even necessary? In life, there's a principle that says if you're not growing, you're dying. Your relationship never stays the same. No relationship stays the same. It's either getting better, it's getting worse. In business, you're either getting better or you're getting worse. In every area of life, your health is either getting better, it's getting worse. Nothing stays the same. By investing 2.5 hours every day during the week in yourself, what you find is that suddenly you start to become very knowledgeable in all the areas that you've chosen. It could be health, wealth, happiness, prosperity, good fortune, your purpose, passion. But what you find, you start to build a much more rounded life. You see, wisdom is the principal thing. And the more you get understanding through study, the better your life becomes. Now, I hope that's been useful. I wish you the best of luck.